Good. All right. Good morning, good afternoon. I guess at this point, I know our chairman is running a few minutes behind. He's going to dial in, but I also spoke to you, Mr. Reedman, chairing the meeting, getting the meeting started this morning for us. So I think, Colin, we're all set to go. Colin has given us the good sign. So we're set.
Could everyone please rise and face the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So that, would you please call the roll?
Paul Anthony.
Here.
Ann Baum. Robert Brooks. Frank Facciano.
Here.
Don Godshall.
Here.
Justin Grimshaw.
Here.
John Hayes. Ron Heckman.
Here.
Larry Hemberger.
Here.
James Irwin.
Here.
Jeff Matskin.
Here.
Glenn Reedman.
Present.
Mike Stershik.
Here.
Matt Turk. Chris Worley. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No, sir.
No public comment. We'll move to approval of the minutes. I will take a motion to approve the minutes of the February 28th meeting. Mike? Second. Seconds it. Are there any additions, corrections to the minutes? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Reports of the committee officers and staff, the treasurer's report. Justin, are you passing that over?
I'm going to pass that right on to Todd
Okay.
for the December 2022.
Good afternoon, everybody. Before I do my presentation, I want to acknowledge the Power 100 folks that were nominated yesterday in the Lehigh Valley. John Hayes was on the list. We had Dan Basket from Community Action and Tony Alinelli from the Chamber. So we got some representatives in our group. So congratulations. Normally we don't come back and show the final financials for December, but because we had so many adjustments this year, we wanted to bring it back and just kind of let the board know kind of the final numbers that we did come up with. They are higher as far as net income, but we did have some adjustments. The biggest one being the adjustment to the airline settlement. We had accrued about a little over $1 million. That number became about $441,000, and we had the pension adjustment and some other year-end adjustments that we do, but it was quite the big adjustment, almost $500,000 from our original number. So that's a net positive. So again, it's better than what we originally presented, but we just wanted to bring it to your attention. This is kind of what we're going to use to do our final audit. And, oops, I'm sorry. And the reason it changes, we don't have it, it just takes a little bit of time toward the end of the year to kind of get some of these things. And the biggest one I didn't mention is obviously the pension. I think I mentioned this in the committee, that our pensions went from, we were well overfunded, now they're 91 and 87, but that's kind of common for everybody right now. Last year's a tough year. Then we'll start out with, I guess I should go back because I guess we got to do this one approval at a time. This is for the final financials for 2022, so we probably need to vote on this before I talk about February. Somebody want to make a motion?
You want to vote? No
Yeah, you have to vote on this part, then we're doing the other part.
Any questions before we ask for the motions? All right, we'll take a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Frank, Paul. All those, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Welcome, Ann. All right, just so you can get caught up, we just went over the December year-to-date, better than we originally had. The final numbers, about almost $500,000. Then we'll talk about February, where we were as far as traffic. We always start up there because traffic is obviously what drives the engine. We mark in green kind of the best periods during this time period. So from 2017 to 2023, you can see that our best February traffic was 2020. but 65,000 was still better than we anticipated and 22% higher than last year at this point. You can see kind of what's going on up there. Legacy traffic is picking up. You know, it's up about 10% versus last year. But again, it's not as much driving the engine as much as it leaves. You can see kind of in 2023 that we had 69,000 of leisure traffic, but in 2020 we had 55,000. So you can see we're still behind on the legacy traffic, but it is improving. You can see we were 77,000 in 2020, which was an all-time high for us as far as legacy in probably the last 20, 30 years. And then you can see 2021, what happened, and then obviously 2022 went on. And remember, February 2020 was right before COVID. So we were kind of on our way to 1 million passengers, really excited about that, and then poof. Always compare ourselves to all U.S. airports. You can see that the recovery is taking place nationwide. So throughput, which is actually going through the checkpoint, all airports is up almost 11%, and seats are up a little over 7%. We're not doing quite as good as that, but we're doing about 5.5 on our throughput, and our seats are up 6.3. So seats are capacity, and throughputs is actually going to the checkpoint. So again, positive numbers, and this is all compared to our 2019, which is our benchmark year. So that's year. Then we compare ourselves to our peers. When you look at our peers, obviously they would like to be in our position because our peers are really seeing the impact of the legacy traffic. And for those that weren't on our board, we had our crew base that we added for Allegiant in February of 2020. So we got to see kind of the benefits of that now, but obviously it wasn't in our traffic before then. But you can see kind of what's going on. In White Plains, that is Breeze. And in the low-cost carrier, we can see everybody else is kind of taking a little bit of a whip in there. You can see, again, February, I'm not going to knock on wood with the snow, but, you know, we had a pretty good month as far as snow and obviously energy costs lower. We did pull in about a little over $1 million of CARES. And you can see that we did quite well compared to budget. We're almost 560,000 and change, better than what we budgeted for the month. So again, doing quite well. And I always like the fact that if you take out that CARES, that's still a positive number. Because again, at some point we're going to run out of CARES, so it's something we have our eye on. But you can see down there, again, because of the traffic, better than what we budgeted. You can see, obviously, parking revenue is up. And then overall expenses, a lot of that because of the mild winter and light snow is a lot less than budgeted, and some of that is also attributed to our head count. You can see year to date, again, doing better than budget. I like it when we start off the year on a positive note. Some of this stuff is timing, obviously, because you anticipate certain expenses early in the year that might be later. But again, when revenue's up, net revenue's up, that's always a good thing. You don't have to give that back. But overall, again, mild winter, I think we had 36,000 year to date in snow. Last year, I think we had 247,000. And then in 2021, it was over 300, almost 320,000. So you can see, obviously, that was a big impact on direct snow costs. So that obviously impacts our bottom line. Oops, I gotta go back the other way. We always talk about the breakdown of personnel versus non-personnel, and they're kind of pretty much running neck and neck here. For the month, it was 11 and 11, and year-to-date is 12 and 12. Again, if you look down at the bottom there, kind of what's happened since COVID. You know, we had 176 FTEs, 128 employees in 2021. We budgeted, 224 FTEs, total employees 309. You can see that growth year over year over year with more room to continue to grow. So that's nice. And we're growing. Obviously, when you're growing, you can never quite get there fast enough. But when you go the other way, it goes faster than you want it to go. So again, this is good stuff. Again, we did reduce that number slightly from what we had previous year when we said full staffing, but still we have a lot more room to grow. And then talk about cash, we always want to maintain 60 days cash on hand, and that's after reserves and contingency. And that black line there represents over the next 12 months that we're going to stay well above that 60 days cash on hand. And that's all, a lot of our connector and all that stuff going on, a lot of runway, all the rehab, all that stuff kind of impacts cash, but you can see we stay well above 60. Never want to see that 3 days cash on hand ever again in life. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Questions for Todd? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion for the February 2023 financial report. Jeff, second by Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Justin, moving to the business committee.
Let Ryan handle this, the EMAS reseal.
Thank you, Justin. Good afternoon, everybody. So we presented this at committees last week. We're looking for approval for Runway Safe Incorporated to perform the EMAS bed seam seal repairs on the runway 31 end. Just kind of as a quick background, last year we did the runway 13 end over on Race Street. The EMAS beds, engineered material resting systems, were installed over about 7 years ago. At least around every 5 years, they recommend the preventative maintenance to ensure water doesn't infiltrate into the basically a crushable concrete block and then degrade the actual performance of stopping an aircraft should it overrun the runway. We did include the project in our 2023 CIP. Total budget amount was $480,000. The quote that we got from them last year again stays valid, just under that number on $477,000. We are coordinating with them to perform the work in April, as we discussed at the committee. By doing that, we actually get a 10% discount of about $43,000. As of right now, based on our conversation last week, we're narrowing down the date, but we should be able to do that in April. The biggest thing here, Runway Safe Incorporated is the only approved vendor and contractor to do work on the material based on the FAA specifications that are out there. Hence why we need to enter into contract with them based on those components. So again, we're just looking for approval of the proposals for both the seam seal replacement, and then forgot to mention there's a field strength test to ensure the blocks again are maintaining that integrity that they have. We're looking for approval to enter into contract with Runway Safe Incorporated as presented in the amount of $477,917 for the preventive maintenance services and testing for the EMAS bed on the runway 31 end, or runway 13 departure as they call it. So any questions?
Questions, Frank?
So Runway Safe is the only vendor in the country that can do that kind of work?
Correct.
Yeah. It's called a monopoly. Which I know you know that.
Any other questions? All right, I will take a motion for approval of runway 31. Mike, second, Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will move to the executive committee.
Thanks, Ryan.
And we are going to be looking at the approval of the First Amendment to the ground lease option agreement with Majestic Hanover Business Park LLC. And Darren will lead us through that.
Thank you, sir. So we did also discuss this in great detail last week at the committees. We actually had representatives from Majestic here to sort of explain where they're at in the process and why they were seeking this extension. The quick background, in the agreement, they have until April 1st to get the zoning change in Hanover Township. For sort of all the reasons listed below and what they explained last week, they haven't been able to get to that point just yet. They are working towards it. They are scheduled to be at the township in 2 weeks, I believe. I think it's 2 weeks from today, actually, when they'll be there. So this benefits the authority. The zoning change will benefit the authority basically because the property actually will produce more revenue under the proposed zoning than it would if we were to proceed under the current zoning today. So much as I hate to extend anything longer than we have to, I think it makes sense in this case. We would like to see the zoning change, so we would recommend approving a 6-month extension, which will give them till October 1st to get the zoning change done. And, speaking with them, we all feel that that's reasonable, that it should be able to be done in that amount of time. That said, I'm happy to answer any questions, and if anybody is looking, the agreement is actually in Novus too, so the entire agreement with Majestic is in there. It was actually in there last week, I didn't think about it when you were asking, or I would have mentioned it then, but
I printed out all 177 pages, and Justin had to wait to use the copy. He didn't want to stop it. Good.
I'm not stopping my boss's stuff when it's coming out.
it is quite a long agreement, as I think John mentioned last, it took a long
Yeah,
time to
this
get there.
was, it was probably, I think.
Did you read it?
It was a 2-year process in terms of negotiating the agreement. It was not an easy one.
No, it took a lot of time, but I think at the end of the day, a good agreement for us and a good project all the way around,
So on the, just on the township though, and we're looking for a zoning change, is that going to be an easy change or not?
It seems, listen, we haven't been leading this, obviously Majestic has. With what we've heard from them and with the conversations, it seems that the township is in favor of making the changes. They did just come back with the engineer with a bunch of questions, I know, last week after we had the meeting with them. But it's not a huge change, and honestly, it really actually decreases the density that we're gonna put on the project. There's a lot of advantages to changing this for the township too when they look at it, really, because it's, under the current zone, you could actually cover with more buildings, but less profitable buildings, really is what it comes down to. So this truly is probably good for the neighborhood as
They
well.
say they're just slow. The one guy doing 3 jobs.
Well, I think there was some change. I mean, obviously there's always change in the township leadership structure, elections and things change. I think at one point in time, the township manager retired and then unretired, so that didn't help progress at all. So it's just been a lot of that, and just, it was a pretty extensive change at the end of the day, because the way the zoning document was written. So they took quite a bit of time to rewrite the code to what they're looking for. I think that was the other piece of it, so.
Yeah, but I'm uncomfortable when people are doing business with the authority. It's been delay. And, we just got to tell businesses no.
I understand, and we have the ability to do that in this case, but it would truly hurt us more than it would help
Hard
us.
no.
It's not the business that is slowing this process, though. It's the township that's slowing this
Well,
process.
I don't think you want to tell the township that they don't have good government in place. They're going to say, no, we
Well, I understand that.
were able to form.
Yeah, but I've been through enough zoning hearings over the years that it never happens on time.
Yep.
Do you feel like they're on top of it? They've been doing their due diligence?
I do feel like they are, and like I said, I do feel as much as 6 months is 6 months, we'd rather not give away. Ultimately, the payoff from making the zoning changes is gonna be well worth the 6 months' time.
Right, but also Majestic has in place right now, the way the zoning is, they can proceed with the project.
They agreed, and originally they would proceed, but again, the return won't be as good. So financially, we might get money faster, but we won't get as much. So I think that's what you have to.
And then the other part
I agree
is,
with what Darren had said. This is in the interest both of Majestic and of the authority, so I'm supportive.
but will this also delay more of the contract? You know what I mean? Like, we already got one delay up front. Will that cascade throughout the
Well,
process?
they have a period, once the option expires, the option expires. They have a period where they have to start developing.
But there's some extensions in there.
There are extensions as long as they're progressing. Those extensions are only triggered if they're meeting milestones, and some of these milestones are the zoning change and things like that they'll have to meet if they do decide to extend the option. So, could it delay farther down the road? I can't make that prediction, to be
Right.
honest. But we certainly have the ability to stop it if they're not meeting their requirements.
Did the committee consider doing 3 months instead of 6 months to move it faster?
We did not, but I will say the concern from Majestic when we talked about this was just the summertime coming and meeting schedules and things that sometimes don't always happen in the summer. So 3 months, I feel like if we do 3 months, we're probably gonna be back here in 3 months saying, we need 3 more months. So I feel like 6 months is the right number,
Any other questions for Darren? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for approval for the First Amendment to the ground lease. Jeff?
So move.
And a second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
How many noes do we have, please? 1, 2, 3,
Looks like one up on the screen.
4, Mr. Brooks. That's it? 4 noes? Please note that, so that.
Thank you very much.
We'll go to Larry, nominating committee.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those who were here at the committee meeting, this is pretty much a rerun, but just FYI, last month, John asked me if I would chair the nominating committee, which I have. I was able to select 2 people, which serves on the committee as well. And I want to thank Mike and Frank. Thank you very much for your help. Which brings us to the slate of officers and who we will be nominating. We will not be voting today, we will be voting next week. This is just FYI. The Chairman, John Hayes, Vice Chair Glenn, Secretary Treasurer Justin, Lehigh County Rep Mike, Northampton Rep Paul Anthony. We will vote next month, and if you have someone you want to nominate from the floor, that will be the time to do it. Thank you very much, and thank everybody for coming forward. You made my job easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Any questions for Larry?
I just want to reiterate what Larry said, that anybody who is interested in being considered for those offices, they can be nominated from the floor at the board meeting in April.
Tom, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. As Todd mentioned, good numbers for February on the passenger traffic side, up 22% versus last February and up 11% versus February 2019. When we look at the national throughput for checkpoints, see what's kind of happening nationally, traffic has been a little bit down versus 2019 March. It's about 2.85% down nationally. Here at ABE, we're up 6.16% on the throughput. So again, always benchmarking back to that 2019 year, and that's, again, positive news. Taking a look at cargo, another good story here, our best February cargo month ever. Really, the traffic was almost 20 million pounds of cargo, up 44%, and a lot of that driven by Amazon's 55% increase in lift coming through February, so pretty significant numbers on the cargo side. When we look at what's sort of occurred since our last meeting, February 28th, March 1st and 2nd, we participated with Miller Keystone Blood Center in their Adopt a Month blood drive. So great turnout and event to support Miller Keystone as we've been doing for many years. March 7th, we were at Liberty High School's career fair, and March 8th at Freedom High School's career fair. So I'll take care of Bethlehem's career fairs. And March 17th over at Springhouse Middle School's STEAM Expos. So again, participating with a lot of the local schools and career discussions. The 22nd of March, we presented an airport system update at the Lehigh County Commissioners meeting. And let's see, also earlier this month, we received notification that our fire department received 100% certification in Firefighter 2 training from the state fire commissioner, the office there. There's actually only 2 departments in Lehigh and Northampton counties that meet that requirement, and we are one of them. So congrats to our fire department. Proud of that accomplishment. We can give them a little round of applause. I'm in favor of that. In terms of upcoming events, April 3rd through the 7th, our TSA pre-check open enrollment event is sold out. So Colin's doing apparently too good of a job pushing the information on social media about that. So that's sold out already. But stay tuned for more events this year. April 13th, we will be attending the Real Estate Outlook hosted by the Chambers, so Frank will see you there. April 21st is Earth Day, so we'll be doing a spring cleanup at all 3 airports. If board members want to participate, feel free, just don't wear anything nice. April 27th is Take Your Child to Work Day. We host typically around 20 K through 12 students, and they'll get the full run through the airport, so it'll be a lot of fun for the students, good day for them. I did want to mention something happening in May is a Fear of Flying seminar. Since Colin's pushing these things out too well, we have, I think, just 4 openings left. If people are interested in participating, great response to these. And at 6 to 8 p.m., May 8th, Fear of Flying, sign up at flyab.com. So with that, that concludes my report, Mr. Vice Chair. Happy to answer questions if there are any.
Anyone? Questions for? Seeing none, we'll go to our solicitor, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Again, not a lot to report here, just sort of general council maintenance work that my office has been doing. Notably, we're working on Radar Drive. That's an ongoing project. Darren's laughing, with Rockefeller as far as, was this going to be a private road versus being dedicated to a public road, and so we're working through the details on that. Some other landlord-tenant matters, that sort of thing. Also, we're getting the tax appeals going the deadline is in August, so to capture for next year some parcels that ought to have tax exemptions on them in Lehigh County. The Commonwealth Court has agreed to publish the stormwater decision in the Westchester case. So that means that that's a precedential opinion. If the Supreme Court, as you may be aware, is now evaluating whether or not to take the appeal that was filed by Westchester Borough in that case. And the decision there was that the the stormwater assessments are taxes and not fees. So if the Supreme Court denies allocator, as we call it, that doesn't review the case, then the Commonwealth Court opinion will stand, and that would basically make the authority's lawsuit with the city of Allentown go away. It's already determined that the stormwater is a tax and not a fee. And then finally, your statements of financial interest, please get them to Sylvette. If you've completed them in Novus, you do have to actually save it and email it to Sylvette in order to get that through. I did mine last week. So please remember that's the statutory requirement, so everyone has to fill one of those in.
Any questions for Elizabeth?
Elizabeth, could you just bore down a little bit on the stormwater? I know we've been talking about that. So it's going to the higher court, and I mean, our position has been we shouldn't be paying Allentown. And you're saying if they in fact don't hear it, then we're not paying. We don't have to pay.
Correct.
And I was going to say, we get money back.
Right, so we paid under a protest so that there wouldn't be any interest or late fees or any sort of thing incurred. And then we would go to the city and say, okay, we didn't have to pay this and we should get our money back. Now, will that be easy? I don't know.
Do you think we'll have to fight? I'm just curious, and you would know, do you think they'll say, okay, you're right, or they're going to postpone it and try and...
Right, so there's two separate issues, right? There's the actual return of the funds, which I can't predict how agreeable they'll be to that. But then the other issue is, it's been determined if the Commonwealth Court's opinion stands. So there won't be any ongoing litigation as to whether or not it's a tax or a fee. And the city can't say, no, it's a fee because it's different here. I mean, unless they can say that their program is so much different, but they're all really modeled off of one, they're all the same.
So going forward, it would be okay, but it might be a little bit tricky getting the money back. It's like a two-part thing.
Yeah.
Right, it's a two-part thing, and
All right, thank you.
It's a tax, or as John likes to say, it's an egregious
tax.
Egregious stormwater tax, absolutely.
Has the city held that money separate or anything, or we don't know?
I don't, no, they haven't been required to.
But we've been on it.
About how much do we have with the city?
Should be, what, 3 years?
At least 3, yeah.
3 years.
So 220-ish, 230-ish?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
And each one had a protest that we sent.
Correct.
Don't forget, a member of the board is the mayor of Allentown.
That's fine.
Oh, that has been a point of conversation, Glenn.
Who changed his opinion?
Yeah.
Any other questions for Elizabeth? Any new business? Elizabeth, do you have a need for an executive session?
No, sir, not from me.
Glenn, I've got something briefly that would be considered old business, because we talked about it during the committees, or it could be new, I'm not sure. But very briefly, I just wanted to clarify my comments in regard to board attendance with airport authority employees. I am in favor of attendance at board meetings. I think that's a good thing. But I wanted to make sure that I was clear that it's always subject to management discretion and making sure that we're appropriately staffed, staff are on their posts, et cetera. We can't let anything stand in the way of making sure that we have all of our airport authority departments and positions staffed at all times. So I'm in favor of attendance, but obviously that is subject to management discretion and making sure that we are properly staffed. So I just wanted to, I think I said the first half of that when we talked about it at committee. I wanted to make sure I mentioned the second half as well.
Any other comments from any members of the board? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We are adjourned.